we're on the theme of seeing with new eyes, which is about how we, what if really, what if we could look this way, but what if we look this way? It's like a different perspective, seeing a different view. And we can look at our hopes, but we can also look from our hopes.
Mm.
And I wonder if you'd be up for doing this simple paired exercise.
Sure.
And basically there's a few steps with it. I'll just get my instructions, and we've got a handout that people can download for
Great.
this week's. And the starting point is just to hold the question, when you're looking at all this kind of awful news of things happening and you're feeling your concerns, and there's an open sentence that says, facing my concerns, what I deeply hope for is. And when we've been doing these paired practices over Zoom, you can choose how long you want to spend on each one. But there's 5 open sentences, and there's a little bit of transitioning process in between where we use our imagination. And so we could just do like a minute each, a minute on each one.
Sure.
So
That'd
it'd
be
be
lovely.
like, and we can do it. We can either do it like alternating, like you go and then I go, or we can do one person doing 5 minutes, going all the way, and then swap over and doing the other person doing
Let's
5
let's
minutes.
let's alternate. That's nice, I think.
Okay, so what we need is, do you have a timer handy? I've got one. If you don't, by the way. But if you've got like a mobile phone or an egg timer or something like that that just does 1 minute, that's all we need.
Yeah, I've got my phone here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so the important question is, who's going to go first? Do you fancy going first or second?
I don't mind. I go for it if you like.
Okay, so the open sentence is facing my concerns, and we're looking here, concerns about the world. What I deeply hope for is, and what I'm going to do, Rob, is that when a minute goes, I'm just going to raise my hand like this.
Okay.
And you don't have to stop mid-sentence, but see that as an invitation to come into landing.
Okay.
And you have a minute on your
So
chosen future.
just tell me
Um,
again. Just read it again as you start my minute.
Facing my concerns about the world, or it could be, generally facing my concerns about the future. What I deeply hope for is
Is an extraordinary coming together of a movement of movements informed by a different narrative of the future, one which is rooted in what if, in stories of transformative change that already exist around the world, in people supporting each other, in movements that are skilled at good facilitation and are able to support each other in doing that work, and a time when government comes to see that its role, where we flip the power thing upside down. So the role of government is to support municipalities. The role of municipalities is to support local government. The role of local government is to support local people to reimagine and rebuild everything. And that's the way that it works. So that when we get to the end of it, yeah, people will feel like they have lived through a revolution of the imagination when anything felt possible.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So, lovely to hear you. Thank you. So, my go,
Your turn.
and
Your
you're
turn.
going to tell me when to start.
I will time you. Yeah.
So, facing my concerns, what I deeply hope for is, it's something like it's a combination of a fire of deep longing and passion with also a sense of possibility that arises in people's hearts and mind. And I suppose in a way you could call that like active hope. That there's active hope, there's kind of different elements of that, but it's like the fire of active hope in our hearts and minds is that sense of, I would love this to happen so much that I'm gonna put myself behind it. And the thing about that kind of thing is that it can just spread. It can spread, and then you get like a positive wheel of it. And so what I deeply hope is like there's flash points of inner fire, of inspiration, that lead to a sense of, this is something we do. Some people do yoga. We do active hope. Okay, there's me. Okay, so number 2 is, well, actually, before we do number 2,
I love that, Chris, by the way. That was beautiful. Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Before we do number 2, we do a kind of like a jump. And what we do, like, the Kingdom of Shambala might be the sense of deep connectedness, but it might also be this kind of special land where, the land of our hope, where we're going to go into that hope, and just thinking, like, from any moment, there's so many different ways it can go. But if we were to follow the timeline of what's the best that can happen here, what's really the best, and sometimes things can be even better than we'd hoped. So let's follow that sense of the best that can happen, and it takes us to a point where we are going to be arrived in our hopes, and we're going to look around, and we're going to notice what we love and like. And so then we're going to move into a sentence like, what I like or love about what's happened here is something like that,
Okay.
so but I don't know. We can do it like a transition process. Do you have a transition sound or process? Like if we were to go ping to move from here to, how do we move from what is to what if? Do you have a little?
Uh, I do have a little. Well, I have my time machine noise.
Okay, what's your time machine noise?
Can I share my screen? Can you make me a host so I can?
I can make you a host, and we can share your screen. Okay, here we go.
I do an exercise with groups with my time machine, and I tell them that I've got my time machine and we're going to travel forward in time, and that I've spent lockdown building a time machine. And when I do it live, I get everybody to hum. That's the sound of us turning the time machine on. When I do it in person in small groups, we take a physical step forward. But I had to for during COVID create a sound which sounded like you were being picked up in 2021 and then lifted and then dropped down into a 2030. That was the result of us having done everything that we possibly could. So this is what it sounds like. I'll turn my time machine on.
Do we hum along with it?
No. It's just it's about 30 seconds, and the idea is just to close your eyes and imagine that you are being picked up in 2021 and dropped down into a 2030. That's the result of
Okay,
everything.
okay, I'm ready. I'm strapped in.
Yeah, and so that was a lot of sounds that I recorded during the first lockdown when all the cars stopped, and I wanted to capture them and use them in some way of helping people imagine what the future might be like.
And that's fantastic that we've managed to do another call 10 years later after that one we did 10 years ago, back in 2021.
Yeah,
And here we are in 2031, and we followed the timeline of traveling into the best that can happen.
yeah. Who
And
knew? We
and
did it. Go, Chris.
and so we were also, we've actually pre-booked this interview 10 years ago. We said, let's meet up in 10 years time, and we said that we had this open sentence that we were going to do, and it goes, what do you like or love about things working out this way? What do you like or love about things working out this way? And I don't know, do you want to go first or second?
I don't mind. I go first if you like.
1 minute beginning, over to you.
Mm. I love the blue skies we have now without the airplane contrails in them all the time. I love that our streets now are so since we got rid of most of the cars, how all the imaginative uses different neighborhoods have put those streets to. Some are little forests, some are gardens, some are playgrounds. Walking around a city is so much more interesting than it was before. I love the flavors and tastes that this local food economy has brought to us that we just couldn't imagine back in 2021 when everybody ate the same food made in massive, massive factories. And I love the beauty of the architecture that is built now when it's built for people and community, and I love the sense that um, that we that this was what we dreamt of and that this is what we created. I mean, wow, how amazing is that?
Ah, thank you. Thank you. So, do you still have your old timer from, that's the thing. One of the things we do is we make things last. I think you
I
might
do.
have
It's the
one.
same one, although I've just put it. Oh, it's here. I put it down. I thought, yeah, no. It's. I mean, people started building things to last. I mean, this will last me the rest of my life. I think now this thing. Yeah, and our whole relationship to the back in 2020, they was 2021. They were so addictive, these things, but we've really mastered that now, and they're just a tool like a spade or anything really.
Shall I go?
Yeah,
So
just tell me what the question
when
was again.
So I can't even remember actually, but because it was 10 years ago did this thing. But anyway, it was something about when I look around at how things have worked out, what I like or love about how things have worked out. And I suppose I can just spend a moment just really taking that in. And what I like or love is something about it's like the widespread experience of being in love with life. And this is kind of like that's a starting point, this real amazingness, because it's like also we've kind of really taken on the skill of training ourselves to savor and appreciate life more, to really, it's like there's a saying that, happiness isn't just getting what you want, it's wanting what you get. And so to be able to really take it as a fine art form, this noticing, like positive noticing what's there and loving life so much that we want it to continue, and that we are part of this amazing story where we're not just here, as just things happen to be on earth to gobble it up, but we're here with a role to play as people who show up to like work together on 1 + 1 = 2 and a bit with everything they come into contact with, in this
Mm,
conversation, or with a piece of land, or with a new idea. Thank you.
beautiful.
Ah, so one of the things that we do in this time too is, we we recognize this is not just like an event that happened, the great turning, the great imagination revolution, um, but it's a continuing process. And so we spent time training ourselves in finding our strength to keep going. And
Mm.
I'm just so our next 1 minute is we do 1 minute each way on what helps me find my strength to act, what helps me find my strength to turn up, to play my role is, and we've been studying this and we've been developing upskilling. This is a form of one of the areas of great upskilling.
Mm.
And so are you happy to go on what helps me find my strength
Okay.
to turn up and play my part is um, 1 minute each.
Mhm. Um,
Oh, sorry. Just one thing. I made a mistake, but we're really good at forgiving ourselves when we make mistakes these days.
Good.
And there was one other thing is that we know that things have worked out like they have now in 2031 because of things they did over the last 10 years.
Mm.
And it's important to look back and say, hey, how did we get here? What did they do? What did they
Mm.
do over this last 10 years? And one of the things they did back then was particularly looking at the early 2020s. One of the things they did back then was, do you want to go? Or
Yeah, one of the one of the things they did in the early 2020s was that the movements for change, and there were many, many of them then, realized um, that so many people had been lost through similar movements through history to burnout, and that burnout was really the scourge of these movements, and that they needed to design into themselves from the beginning a culture of support and regeneration and rest and recuperation. And Extinction Rebellion were very good at that in the early 2020s. The transition movement was very good at it. Many people did courses online and in person with Chris Johnstone, which they found very, very helpful as well. And there were many other places where people were absorbing these skills, and as time went by, these skills became more and more mainstream. So as the movement of movements built and these movements started to work together, they were based on foundations of supporting each other and of designing for resilience of people and of those organizations and movements.
fantastic, fantastic. And I have so appreciated using those skills and those insights myself, that how do we keep the flame alight?
Mm.
And shall I go for mine?
Do.
So one of the things, so following on from what you, so um, and it's kind of like yes and. Um, so I love that phrase which you taught me a decade ago. Yes, and so you're timing me. So one other thing they did was they saw that there was something about turning. It's not just like will it happen or won't it happen. It's like what does it look like here and now, and it's the shift from seeing turning, and whether you call it change or transition, not as an event, will it happen or won't it, but as a process that we can all show up with at any moment. It's like, okay, what does it look like today if I was to show up? But also they recognize that in order to do it well, we need to train ourselves. And the upskilling around burnout prevention is part of that. That's part of that training. But it's also like really taking on board the question, what helps me show up and play my part the best way I can? And so they people started meeting, they'd say, hey, will you be my support buddy? Um, Training each other, taking on as a personal level, paired journeys, and also in small groups.
Mm. Beautiful. I always think, Gil Scott-Heron very famously wrote that song, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." I think if he was doing it today, it would be called "The Revolution Will Be Well Facilitated." I kind of feel like we need that on t-shirts. The revolution will be well facilitated. We need to be producing vast numbers of people who are skilled and gifted facilitators, because we're really going to need that in all.
Yes. And one of the things they developed in this decade was the me, you, and us model of facilitation. So me is about how we facilitate ourselves. You is about how we help each other along. And us is about how we do it in groups and communities and our larger
Mm.
society.
Mm.
And so on that, the next, I think it's number 4 of our open sentences is um, what helps us find the strength to act? So, Rob, you've been at it a long time, and particularly this last 10 years has been such an important period. Uh, what helps you find your strength to act?
Uh, the support of friends and family, music, making art, forests, my grandchildren, um, being part of things with other people, feeling like I belong somewhere, which I recognize is an enormous privilege in itself. Um, being able to visit places that have done deeply transformative work that was in part inspired by the work we were doing back in 2021. Novels, Van Gogh's drawings, good food, good beer.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. And are you happy to time me?
Yep, go.
So how did I find the strength to act? So what helps me? What helps me find the strength to act? So one of the things is conversations like this. And it's something about, there's unstructured, just as they happen conversations, but there are also intentional conversations that draw on particular design. So it's like applying design to the process of conversation, where sometimes I have a conversation because I know I need a bit of support in a particular direction. So I think of like vision building conversations. Sometimes I need a conversation just around, I've been through a really difficult knock and I need heart care conversations. Sometimes I need conversations around, I can get a bit complacent and I need a bit of space to remind myself of what worries me. And so it's kind of facing my concern conversations, pain for the world conversations. And sometimes I need just like nudging me to be a bit clearer. I can fuzz out on like beautiful dream, and then it's like, well, okay, what does that look like in terms of a practical step I can take today? And I need focusing conversations. And so all of those, they really help. And sometimes I can do them with myself, just in a notebook, but it's much more fun to do it in company.
Mm.
So thank you. Um,
I was enjoying that so much I completely took my eye off the time. So yeah,
oh,
because I was just lost in enjoying what you were saying.
so there's something that we do in this conversation, which is we can be allies. There's something about like one of the things that we've learned in 2031 is this inhabiting deep time. And so, inhabiting deep time, we know that we can have conversations with us here now in this time, but we've also worked through that time machine that you spent so many years, refining and working. We found a way of like being allies to those at crucial points in history. And so I'm going to suggest now that we do that with this practice, that we go back to the year 2021. I think it was the 17th of May
It
when we
was,
had
yeah.
that conversation 10 years ago. And it's like we go back into ourselves back then with holding all that we know here and now about how beautiful this looks and how we find our strength and what we did along the way that helped this version of the future happen. And do you have a sound for going back in time?
No, just be that.
Should we do the same time? Because it is that's the thing. It when we go into the kingdom of Shambhala or the place of our hopes, however we want to see it, it's the great time sound. And should we do it again? Just to go back.
That one. Okay.
And here we are. We got that
Oh,
there in the year
oh,
2021.
that was
And
amazing.
ah,
Great, wasn't it?
we've got one more thing to do. There's one final thing, and it's something about something I can see myself doing that helps that preferred version of the future become more likely. Something I can see myself doing that helps us head that way. And we're doing that from this point in time. And I wonder if you want to have a minute.
Yeah.
And it's there's never just one thing, but it's like, okay, one of the things, there might be loads of other things, and you did this tomorrow, you might say something different, but what's around today that's alive in your heart and mind, something, and it might be, looking at that possible future, preferred possible future, I can help this happen by, or something I can see myself doing that made this more likely is over to you.
is getting the Atmos project that I'm involved with in Totnes over the line, so we have the site in community ownership, because it is a project, the redevelopment of an old factory on an 8-acre site in a way that is in community ownership, 100% powered by renewable energy, based on what a community needs rather than what a developer needs. Something which is beautiful and was based on us creating an imagination infrastructure for this town, that when that project becomes a reality, it'll be a desperately needed story for this country and around the world of what communities can do, and it will slay forever that myth that the only people who can do development are developers, and they have to do it in a business as usual way because that's the only practical, sensible way of doing things. Actually, when that project hits the ground, everyone will know that that was the myth that it always was. And actually, it was one of the key things that unlocked a belief across the country that change and development could happen in very different ways.
Count me as an ally. Mm, I love the story of moving from what is to what if
Mm,
that is happening through you, through me, through us, through people watching this.
mm.
And it's my go.
Go.
Okay, so you're going to say, so something I can see myself doing is, or I can help that preferred future happen is. Okay, so here it is for me. We can do a great conversation on YouTube and lots of people might watch it. But the thing that they watch even more than inspiring talks is pop videos. And I'd love to get going the Active Hope pop video project. And I'd love to make it really easy for people to join in. So basically, I produce a backing track, or me and other people produce a backing track. And what we agree on is the key, the musical key it's in. So that's like what notes work really well with it, and also beats per minute. And we might start off with something and then we throw it out and say, hey, produce something that you can be your bit, your piece of a jigsaw with this beats per minute and in this key. And then we can kind of fit them together and produce those wonderful collaborative videos. And so anyway, so this is our practice. Thank you, Rob. This is our practice for this week, where we join together. We can either do it by ourselves. We've got the handout that you can download, and it's about, you can look at your hopes, you can look from your hopes. But then the important thing is moving from what is to what if, and looking at having taken in what you become aware of when you look from your hopes. How does that guide you? How does it become a flame in your heart and mind? And you say, hey, I'm showing up. This is the plot of the story that I'm taking part in. And look for others that sometimes, like, the same future truth taps a number of people on the shoulder and say, hey, can I happen through you?
Mm.
Look for people who have heading in a similar way, and this idea of I can't, we can, how we support each other in that, in a way, and don't be put off by the roller coaster of mistakes along the way. So anyway, this is our practice this week, and we've got another week or two of the course where we're going to be looking at going forth next week, and then we're going to be looking at going forth part 2 the week after. It's a 7-week course that takes you through this journey of upskilling ourselves, and it's one of many journeys that are available. But we need to be doing this active hope training process, and that's why we set up this website at ActiveHope.Training. Rob, anything you'd like to say about how that process was for you?
I thought it was beautiful.